Hello and welcome to Healthy Conversations. Today I'm very excited or delighted even to actually introduce you to our next podcast guest. Today I'd love you to meet Deb Husband from Indelight. Deborah is an amazing, she's actually one of our seed investors. So I'm very excited to have her on board the team for the long haul, which is very exciting. But what I'm going to do is I really want to allow you to learn who Deborah is in relation to her business. I'm going to let her take over the show a little bit.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Sarah, and hello to all the beautiful beings out there. Whether you're seeing this or hearing this down in the future, I hope that you have a great connection to something joyful that comes out of this meeting here. So, not sure where you want me to begin, but I'd just say, I guess, I'm a bit of a gypsy of the earth. I was born in England, but then moved very early to Africa and have lived in some really remote and exotic places. And in Africa, I had a great time. I was very young, I think like 3 till 8. And I grew up with a pet chimpanzee. So that explains a lot of my playful uniqueness. And I do speak fluent chimp, which is something that only other chimp speakers would get. So it's not worth going into. But at that time, I found out recently from my dad that because he was in mining at the time, that I used to be, when I'd go to sleep in a huge crystal amethyst cave that was wrapped around my head. And I only realized this much later, but I figured that was what made me connect, I guess, to some of the light and along with Tom, my monkey, some of the unseen forces of things that actually go along. So just give me a second. Sorry, I just had to shut the door.
Okay.
Yeah, so I figured I had this early connection to the energies that exist in a really playful way beyond anything of the mind. And so, the story kind of comes on from there, that I had this deep connection to the light and to playfulness and to the rhythms of nature. But, fast forwarding to a time where I went to boarding school. And when I came to this place where people used a lot of words, or the Western world, because where I'd been in Africa and New Guinea, people didn't really communicate too much with words, but there's definitely the body language going on. When I came to the boarding school, I found it was a real shock to discover people didn't say what they meant or mean what they say a lot of the time. So, and I've always kind of felt discombobulated a little bit in how to deeply communicate in an authentic way. And so I guess fast forwarding, that's what sort of brought me into the light and to color therapy and different frequencies and our connection to nature and the inner the rhythms of the self.
Beautiful. And so just out of interest, obviously you've had a sense of being within that kind of alternative, different sort of modality space. So outside of obviously being surrounded by this amethyst cave and having that sense of being within Africa with body language, being sort of that main language by the sound of it, what other modalities then have you kind of worked within? Like how's that transitioned into what you're doing now? Sort of what was a start, middle, and kind of, yeah.
I think firstly it was very I can't think of the word, but it was an awesome upbringing living in these very remote areas. And I think that stimulated and highlighted a love of travel. So basically, I did travel the world a lot and see some incredible places, and that woke me up to the desire to travel. So I went and studied in Switzerland and did a couple of years of hotel and tourism. And then my goal was always to go and work for Qantas. So eventually, a few years later, I found myself in Melbourne working for Qantas and basically fulfilling a dream. And around about that time, I started to think, well, actually, what I really liked was traveling and not necessarily selling other people the travel. So, you know, when I was traveling around, I came across, I don't actually have a bottle here, but I came across the system of Aura-Soma. And when I picked that up, the entire world shifted. Like as I looked at the bottles that are the dual colors and picked that up, there was such a movement in there, it touched something inside. And I guess that began a journey then of inner journeying. So I now kind of see a connection there with the inner landscape of the soul. And I consider myself a little bit of a tour guide to take people along into these unseen lands that they may not know existed, because I wasn't aware of the depth of inner communication that goes on. So it's a marrying of the external view of seeing the incredible diverse landscapes on the planet. Like in 1 year, I went from New Guinea, that was a steamy tropical 36-ish degrees, which was absolutely luscious, you know, pawpaws and pineapples falling off trees and out of the ground. And I went to Switzerland, which was, of course, at that time about -20, where there was lots of snow and beautiful snow-peaked mountains. And whilst I was in Switzerland, my family moved to far northwest WA, which was Kununurra. So I've come from the tropics to below zero with all of that mountainous stuff into a very desert area of very dry. It only rains for 3 months of the year, sits around 42 to 45 degrees. So there was a lot of juggling of the mind about what we could see on the outside. And as I said, as I journeyed through different frequencies or different languages of the meanings of certain colors, I discovered there were that much diversification within our own being. So I think that it's a field that not many people are aware of, but as you become more connected, as you'd know, to the light body, and this third dimensional world starts to lose its hold on you, where you start to sort of peak above the noise that's going on and go, well, there must be something more to life than this. And I'm not actually feeling what it is that's being said. You know, as people, as their interest gets peaked into the fifth dimension, they sometimes become super aware then of that light body and the other parts of our let me say physical systems that influence the direction that our soul or emotions or mind could be focusing on or in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's questioning, I guess. It's having if there's something, I feel like there's something I'm missing, or I feel like there's something more.
Or
And
I feel like I'm going mad.
yeah.
And what used to make sense doesn't make sense so much anymore as you branch out into different fields and life takes on a different meaning. It's no longer the struggle of living in 3D and actually just get a job, or go to school, get a job, you know, provide for a family, etc. All of those things are still there, but there's something much more delightful at the center of the being that brings that element of the juiciness of life.
Curiosity almost.
Yeah, and a connection to, well, there's got to be more, and if there was more, what more could there be for me, and where could I play? And so we bring this curious and playful nature into blending it with all the gifts and the talents you might naturally have, and then finding a way that the 3D world could benefit from those talents rather than being molded into, you know, as I mentioned, I went to boarding school, so it was like really hammered in to me the way things should be. And I didn't ever really fit in properly there. You know, it was a really, so you'll find if your mind starts to be going, oh, this is just not, this is grating on me, this just doesn't flow. When we find ourselves in natural synchronicity, and I hope to God that everybody feels that at some point, you know, the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, because it's almost effortless living, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas we're not doing that, it's a real crunch of, they say feather, brick, and truck.
Yes.
Get your first little whisper of, yeah, do something different. Then you get a brick of like, well, maybe a broken bone and or a lost phone or something, and then the truck comes. So it's like trying to bring people into an alignment, because there is something that reflects that back to us from the universe when we're not in that flow.
Oh, definitely. I was just actually having a conversation before, and they were talking about having sciatica.
Oh yeah.
And so they've been working in their job for quite a number of years, and sitting down, having this constant pain to the point where the pain was that bad that they had to stand up at their job.
Yeah,
And then from there, they had a blessing in disguise, which was actually to move from where they were to Australia. And it was actually here that they were able to explore and understand that they literally had a pain. The job was the pain in the ass.
yes.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is where like having those experiences, like it's not just the thought or that feeling as such. It could be physical,
Yeah,
having a physical pain in the body that's constant. And I just want more than this.
yeah,
There's got to be
absolutely.
something outside of the pain that I'm experiencing in my physical body, or the discomfort in maybe emotional. And then
Absolutely. Yeah.
from that space, obviously this is where people can contact you as well to be
Mm.
able to maybe explore something a little different, as
Mm.
maybe by what you're suggesting as well, like what are your true core um, passions, and what excites you, and all the yummy juicy things that comes from that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And so
Well,
yeah,
I
sorry.
was going to say, if that was a question to me, I think it's always about exploring the inner worlds,
Mm.
discovering the things. Like, I like to think of us as being a holistic ball of energy. And Aura-Soma sort of believes that you are born perfect. And of course, all of us do believe, when you look at a little baby, how could it not be absolutely perfect? But life teaches us to layer up and armor up, and all of these different experiences get caught in the field. So I like it that we can, if you can imagine this big ball of light all around the body, and we've got little trigger points of the soul. So, like you're saying, there's a trigger point in the sciatica area. If that is not attended to, it becomes a dis-ease for sure. And we can have those dis-ease spots mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or physically. So as you get to notice where the energy doesn't flow, then we've got an option to bring our attention towards it and actually help release that. And in my mind, it's like little fireworks of energy suddenly being released, and those extra electrons are then available to fly around our quantum being, and we're able to then use that to actually create the next experience that we would like to have. And rather than being caught in a powerless or disempowered sort of a way.
Absolutely, I love that.
I think I learned that from learning in this life to manage my trauma for most of my life. I mean, I had to traumatically leave Tom in Africa, and that happened very quickly. And for like 35 years, I carried around this energy of guilt, because I could not remember saying goodbye. I could not remember any completion. I like, and then I went thinking for, has there been abuse? Has there been this? Has there been that? I found out at 56 that we literally left overnight. And yet for 35 or 40 years, I was carrying this energy around where I just burst into tears whenever I thought about it, because of this disconnect. That
Mm.
now, and I did a lot of work on healing that and feeling that, but it was only when the trauma actually popped into unbelievable. How can you get to like 56 and find out different facts about your life, which are exciting and shocking all at the same time? But that kind of happened around about the same time that I lost my mum, and I had a really difficult time with, close family members not wanting to be here. And during that time, I thought, I've got all these tools, I've got all these wonderful things that could help. And I really wanted to actually get involved and help them. but they were actually really not wanting to be helped. And it was the really excruciating time when I realized that the best help was to heal myself. And I didn't even realize I was carrying trauma that I had managed around. So it's like, okay, well, I don't have that leg anymore. Therefore, I'm learning to walk on other bits of my body. But when I started to actually heal the trauma that I thought, or I was recognizing by looking at external sources, when I started to heal that within myself, not only did I heal, but it sort of unraveled the opportunity for other people to have their pain experience and feel and heal from that. So I kind of went from managing trauma into healing the trauma, and then becoming really passionate about the fact that people are not even aware that they're only managing in life. I mean, more are becoming more aware now because society is just bombarding us with information, and we're so drawn out of the mind into what's being flooded here, that it's going to become very clear we're not in balance with what we're feeling and sensing, because we've got no time to digest any of that, and let alone any time to notice what's going in the physical body until it starts to squeal. So if I can bring a little bit of consciousness to that process a little earlier, particularly for those that have got some awareness that something could be better or something didn't feel right, and actually then empowering themselves to go forward and really start to unravel that suffering. It's a beautiful journey where you do find a deep connection to something beyond the self that gives you unlimited energy to come out and do what you need to be doing, or what we're meant to be doing on the planet right now.
So from here, let's just really probably go into a little bit more detail about what is it that you do? What is Aura-Soma? What are the other modalities that you work with?
Well, Aura-Soma has been a deep love. Like I said, when I was younger, I used to spend all my time upside down in a pool, just laying backwards and coming back up, and laying backwards and squishing the eyes. And I don't know if anyone's tried that, but I strongly recommend it. But in there, you can see all of these psychedelic colors, and you can actually really start to see that there is an inner movement going on. So Aura-Soma is a system of multicolored, was two colors within each bottle of a myriad of different options. And the idea is that you are the colors that you choose, and this reflects what your being needs. This is beyond your mind, beyond a thought. It's a deeper sensation as we connect into a system that's called the light body, that actually communicates via photons of light and little electrons in a similar way to the endocrine system, just bringing a little bit of the science in there, that we're blending the body's capacity to dissolve preconditioned patterns of the past with the possibilities of the future, because the color and the light are not judgmental. They don't appeal to one age group. They are inclusive of all. It really does bring you closer to the promise of some hope in life. And yet it will also show us where our challenges may be, roadblocks that we keep happening upon. And it gives our mind, body, and emotions something that we can lean on more comfortably as those things correct themselves. So it sort of appeals to, so I've got an app or an online program that appeals to the logical, informative part, so that people get used to the language. And then as they drop into perhaps being drawn to 4 of 123 different multicolored bottles, this highlights to them their particular color code. And during that consultation, you're able to see clearly what patterns are trapping you, and where you could find a bit of liberation, and what we might have seen as a challenge could actually become the greatest gift. As they often say in the coaching field, your mess becomes your message. But it really depends on whether or not we've cracked through taking the ability to transform our mind from anything we consider negative into considering something as a positive. but not in a forceful way. It's a system that offers a non-intrusive, self-selecting soul therapy. And it works in your quantum field from the physical, the application of a bottle, further out to the emotional. The area I'm seeing bombarded a lot right now is the one of the electromagnetics. And it's where the juicy imaginations could be, except it gets dried and brittle, and we're then unable to sort of perceive something beyond where we're at because there's such a lack of the excess of electrons, whether that be from a fridge, a microwave, just a road rage, or people in a bad mood. All of those things use up or create maybe a dirty space in our field. So working with some of the commanders, we get to clean that field, to nourish that field, and to protect that field. And then there's other products that work on the energetic field of taking one's mind to mastery, where, through intense awakenings or situations, we are put on our path. Sometimes, people might have a near-death experience, or people might really awaken to something that starts to come through them where they weren't expecting it, extra knowledge or those spontaneous awakenings. That's a field that we can actually nurture and encourage. And then we work with a whole set of energies that are archangels, that are here to assist humanity to raise its vibration and transform its consciousness at the moment. Now, all of this is very upper chakra orientated. So it's that search for more, the higher perspectives, the higher purpose, the passions, the how can we ground that? But also, I also work with the earth-based energies, particularly in transforming where we feel restricted or trapped or unable to move past a situation, but it's very physically orientated. Like you were saying before, there could be stuff going on in the body, and that could come from anywhere. So if we work with essential oils and the scent, it's connecting to the limbic system and doing the same sort of thing, where we're in training ourselves to strengthen the autonomic nervous system and reduce the amount of cortisol shocks that go on. As I said, we really need this part to relax at the moment and to learn how to become human again. But also we need to dissolve some of the things that are caught in the body, and then using essential oils is a really hands-on, quick. If I've got a cut or a bruise or something, hay fevers, or if I'm not feeling well at the moment, the essential oils have an instant effect on the physical body. If we start to work on the physical body with essential oils and there is no shift, then we kind of know that there is a greater purpose or a deeper meaning going on in between. So, of course, all of that sounds like a shitload of information and a shitload of work. And so in between the two, I have colorful coaching, which allows us to connect into where an individual being is and work out which pathway suits them the best. And I work with empowering people to get to know their body and the way their body interacts with things in a much greater way, because that is our greatest laboratory. So beyond the thinking, should this work or would this work, we've got the physical connection. So I like to encourage people to detox the home, detox the mind, detox the emotions, and actually start to implement some healthy habits along that way based on whatever it is that they need. So I think pretty much that's all of me wrapped up in a nutshell, and just a lot of tools along the way that we could use.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's so interesting and intriguing as well, all those different bodies of energy that we have. So I'm even learning at the moment as well, because from that scientific kind of perspective, I definitely understand that there's a light body, but there's also the electromagnetic field.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
based on our emotions depends on how big or small that can actually be as well. But to be going outside of that is even more amazing.
Well, look, our bodies are a huge laboratory, but when you think about it, the skeletal system, the bone system, the blood systems, all of the cardiovascular systems, respiratory, each one has its own field of communication,
Yes.
but each one of them have an effect on each other.
Yes.
Where the light body and the electromagnetics, like you've said, merge, are all like the endocrine system and the chemistry of the body. And interestingly, that really ties in a lot with the Chinese medicine. So we've got ways of helping the meridian lines. And it does astound me that some people even don't believe in the fact that there are these energetic lines running through their body when, Chinese medicine's been around for thousands and thousands of years. So because it's always been so clear in my mind, my difficulty, if there was any, is how I don't get or understand people who've got no idea on that. Like,
Well, they're not willing to believe that it exists either.
yeah, well,
If it's been around for that many years, then isn't there some validation to it? Validity, I should probably say.
and I can understand though that people that are caught in their world under the stress of, non-stop taxing and non-stop, bombardment of information, and you're basically being corralled like fish into a certain way that you can exist. And I think for some people, there's a terror that they know it's not right, but if they start to look, they're going to lose everything they've ever known as true, and they won't know what to do with it. So it's very true. Like, it's almost better the devil you know than stretching out. So I really want to pass on to people that it's a gentle adjustment. Yes, there will be some brutal and shocking awakenings coming forth for our societies in the next 5 to 10 years, for sure. We're already facing a lot of them, aren't we? But to be able to make one shift gently, you don't have to throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. And just on that, I'm seeing so many relationships break down from this lack of being able to really communicate what the deeper meaning is for them. And we're talking about the deepest meaning, the deepest values are often hidden under this surface anger or frustration. If we are able to educate people on perhaps a different pool of words for every single energy center that there is in the body, then they're able to make a point without having to throw everything in to make it a big argument. We're able to stand.
Reaction of versus responding, and there's big difference between both.
And that's what I think. It's empowering people to take full responsibility, the ability to see, feel, know, and respond in a different way, rather than all they're not acknowledging is the hidden patterns of their belief systems that might not even be theirs, that are just knee-jerk reacting to. If they were to sit down and look at their situation, they'd be like, oh, hang on, I don't actually like that part of myself, or I don't particularly enjoy the way I react to that, or I don't understand why I keep attracting this particular, thing. So all of that can be unlocked and dissolved by just learning a bit of a new language, and actually really finding then an authentic connection to the light that really fulfills us from the inside out, and almost takes us back to that childlike innocence of the joy of being. And we're definitely not in that joy of being so much anymore.
It's I just call it the journey to self.
Yeah.
It's very, very simple to be able to
Sorry, my light's just gone.
That's okay.
Ironic. I just kicked it.
It is actually, isn't it? A bit of light on the subject.
Journey to the self, yeah.
I find that it's probably been one of the most epic journeys that I've actually been able to go through as well. Obviously, you've gone through it as well. It's once you can find out who you truly are and have confidence within that, that's when you're shining at a whole new level.
Absolutely.
And obviously this is some of what you offer is being able to do that, work out who you are authentically, to be able to navigate through some of the potential challenges that you might have, whether that whatever energy source that is,
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
energy center. And then from that, it's you're supporting someone to connect back in with their true self. And
Yeah. I do find I've got like 2 or 3 different streams of people that do
yeah,
come to join in. The number one stream is like people who are aware, like yourself, of alternative dimensions. And they might have, a great network or connections, or they might actually be teaching and holding space for others. There is something so unique about light and the light body that they can actually use any of those tools once they've got a little bit of an idea of where that fits in their energy field. They're almost like thirsting for that support by spraying things around or using a bottle for themselves. It's a very personal journey for those that are holding the space for others. And I have, a number of people who are really stuck with this belief that there is no other way out. And they are becoming more and more squeezed into some container, and they're starting to feel constricted. They can't take deep enough breaths. There's a lot of anxiety or panic attacks coming. And then they start to sort of like not feel like they can escape anywhere. And even just a single session with the emotional breakthrough can help them find that there's a little bit of breathing room, that you truly can transform a belief in a moment to actually create more spaciousness within. And then I see that awakens a bit of a journey. And then there's either some people that might want to go on and become practitioners of a system, or some that might just want to learn how to use oils for their kids, or some that are actually so fiercely self-empowered. And I must say, I was one of those. Like, if anyone tells me what to do, or if a lot of these systems that come out and say, you've got a broken heart chakra, or, your throat's blocked, you need to work on that. I find that almost difficult, because unless I've drawn the colors of blue, that the next thing I need to know is not about that area I'm being told. It could be that it's accessed from a different area within your light body. So the program of Know Thyself, which is funny that you've said, is a journey through 14 different colors that gives you a little bit of an idea on the knowledge or the words, a little bit of a connection to the Pamanda field. And then you've got options from there as to whether you just work with those, if that's enough knowledge, or if you're going to fly forward and try and implement this entire system into an area that works specifically for you, and that can actually help people to bring in another stream of income into their already successful practices. So that's something I'm kind of passionate about as well, because I do think spiritual people should be able to earn a good income from doing what they're doing. And I do think it's important for us to become aligned on the planet right now with companies that are conscious of the planet, the people, and prosperity, not the other way around, but being able to sort of bring into a community that all can rise within that very abundant planet that we've got. When you look at light, when you look at the fruits on the trees, I'm talking about aligning with people that honor that, and unaligning or defragging yourself from the chemical convenience train, which is really not helpful for us, that's full of preservatives, additives, toxins in the airs, the land, the seas, the waters. If we don't really make a stand to create a difference in our own lives and sort of connect with others that are interested in making a difference, we're going to be waiting a long, long time before people that are earning a lot of money out of coercing people into fast foods and processed this and quick sprays of that, and becoming dependent on non-natural chemicals for health and well-being. So I really want to kind of crack open that in the middle of those two fields and actually support people moving forward to help them crack as many I don't know, I feel like crack in a nice way. I like I'm thinking of a DMT way, in the way like our pineal gland has got all of these beautiful little crystals in, and when they crack, they flash open different colors. That's amazing.
That's like those a
Yeah,
New
you know what I
Year's, you
mean.
snap them the iridescent thing and then they
That's the
light
one.
up.
Yeah, yeah. So like cracking in that way, not cracking anybody else. But yeah, when we crack a little
It's just
bit of
like flicking a
color.
light switch even. It's
Yeah,
like all of a
yeah,
sudden it's like boop, the light's
yeah.
on. And it just it's a little torch because then look, I kind of want to go back a little and talk about the fact that when people are stuck, like I have definitely experienced that, and I do every now and then, like everyone does. But I
Sure.
remember my first ever connection with someone in alternative therapy space, and to have that original session with that particular person, it was like, holy shit, my
Yeah,
whole world in that moment, of that session. Like
yeah,
it's not instant, but it's instant in the sense that it's that session.
yeah. Like when it's ready, it'll pop.
Yeah, it changed my trajectory
Yeah.
in that instant, in that moment. And so it's not actually hard. There's no effort
No.
required in that. It's like 1 minute you're thinking this way, all of a sudden you've had a level of awareness. And then that is almost like that thread that you've just found on a jumper that you kind of want to pull at.
Unravel. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that there's such a beauty in that.
Mm.
And I kind of wanted to highlight that as well, because to me, that is the gold.
Yeah,
When,
absolutely.
when you're feeling that way, then to be able to unravel and go, oh, hang on a second. This
Holy
is,
hell. Yeah. What have I
yeah.
done? And how can I make it better? And
Oh, it's like,
how can I come back to freeing myself instead of staying trapped in a
yeah.
little bubble?
Because you
Yeah.
realize that you don't want to be stuck in that little bubble anymore. It's actually funny, just in my area, it's all of a sudden it's got this light that's just come about, which is beautiful. So yeah, it's a really beautiful journey through whoever that like obviously Aura-Soma, to be able to utilize something like that that can just be in that instant. There could be that reprieve, but then it will
Yeah.
actually then provide you with a different insight about yourself that
Yeah.
you may not have known, that is exciting to explore.
Sure. And it's like the still small voice that is within everybody. And it's just starting to build a rapport and a connection to that, because as you know, the still small voice is still and small, and it might speak up once, but you try thousands of other things until you know you come back to that bit that always knew. So trying to narrow down and learn those things a little bit easier. And I guess it comes down to when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change, then we have the change is automatic. And it's kind of like I think of the tower moments where, life will put you back on track sometimes, whether you like it or not. And you're going to go through change. The only constant in life is change, but it's whether or not you choose to flow and become adaptable with the change, or whether you're going to be rigid because there isn't a lot of hope. You will be
Yeah.
dissolved away sometimes, when you are being put on track. It's actually, so it's not for the faint hearted is what I'm saying. It is totally embracing the change, but I still prefer to embrace the change voluntarily and I have had so many near-death experiences. I've been shot at, kidnapped, motorbike accident, nearly drowned. So there's been a lot of moments where I feel like I've been put probably a little bit back on track, but I didn't know that, not to mention all the self-inflicted years of I'm lucky to be alive, seriously. So now I can
Living
see,
life to the fullest.
oh gosh, yeah, yeah. Well, I think also that's why there's a big resurgence of a lot of the plant-based medicines that have come out at the moment, where people are looking for the hope that comes from a psychedelic experience. And there's a lot of great medicine that shows this really does help alter people's perspective when used in a safe and functional way, as opposed to an escapism way, because there's no way you can avoid doing the work. We might think that we might have a moment of awakening going, yeah, this is brilliant, I can see it all. We then have to do the work to help unravel all of the things that blocked us from knowing that as an absolute truth. And that's where the systems of Aura-Soma and doTERRA and any other, healthy plant-based systems can help to offload the pain of that of that brutal awakening sometimes.
I know. The other thing that's just coming to me as well is when we go through some of these experiences, it's I feel like we aren't, like what you were saying before, when we go through an experience, we are going through the learning, we are going through the vibrational elevation, but
Yeah.
it has that on-flow effect. And I
Yeah.
think that once we've had that awareness that we need, like, I need to shift, I need to do something different. For me, it was actually a Mack truck
Oh,
coming
yeah.
along and was like, we're going to explode your world as you know it. You're going to change and you're going to go into a different trajectory, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I did go through a level of victim mode for a very long time around that. However, probably one of my awarenesses from this as well is that I'm not doing it just for me.
Mm.
I'm actually doing it for the people that I come into communication with. I'm doing it for my family that are coming after me, and I'm doing it for the people before me as well. And
Absolutely.
so once I've learned that, I can't not do the work now,
Exactly.
because I know that it's actually really, that's how I'm having the impact. That's
Yeah.
how I'm having um, just that's how I make a difference, I guess.
Yeah.
And so
The
I
little
think that it's
ripples.
important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's important to know for people as well that I think that by going through one of those experiences, if it is hard, then I think there's also a message in there that it's actually, yes, it might be, but there's more empowerment that comes from this, and there's more
Yeah.
impact that you can have by just taking one step.
Exactly. And I think that's why, I do end up working with people that are holding that space or in that healing field, whether, whatever it is, all the way from doctors to nurses, all the way down to spiritual workers and massage therapists and everyone in between, is that often people want to take the responsibility on for every soul that they come into contact with because, God help us, there is some very hurting people on the planet that will need our consciousness to keep them on the planet at times because their pain is so extraordinary and they are so alone. But then there is also the other end where, we tend to want to not have people hurting.
Mhm.
But sometimes, like you've said, without them actually learning how to heal themselves, they're always going to be dependent on someone else to do their healing. Whereas the incredible feelings of joy or pride when you've gone through something and you have made a difference and you have crawled out of the pit, that's something you can then share with those people. So if each person has their own particular healing and there are so many that are similar, yeah, definitely that's going to be helping a whole community become better. And I think when you feel better or better, you can do better.
Absolutely. And all of this from Aura-Soma.
Well, I have some of the color and the light, but I also have some of that deep connection into the love of the plants with
Yeah.
doTERRA, which I think are liquid light. The sunlight married with the plants and the fresh air and the water that go through being transformed within a plant that's existing within the same toxic soup that we're existing in. Those plants, those trees, those elements have all gone through a similar process. So it stands to reason that as those oils are produced onto a plant to offer it protection, community, communication, as those things are then imbibed by us, there's a different area of our physicality that resonates with that. And so it's like both things can come together to offer some complete wholeness. But
And
yeah,
I've
I'm
just
also,
had this flash while you're saying that of the plants and trees and all the earthly beings, earthly energies, of how they talk about how trees can communicate with each other, and how they're all intertwined. And so
Absolutely.
what I see is these plants going through this system because they are already part of the community. And then as they're part of the community, and by us working
Yeah.
with those as well, then it's like
Add that in. Yeah.
we're adding that in as well. How beautiful is that?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think it's that beautiful commonality where we're all as individual and unique as each other. You know,
yes.
the great irony of discovering our own uniqueness is that, everyone gets to discover that as well. But yeah, I love the fact that, we are being bombarded on so many levels of our energetic field that as many tools from nature as possible would be helpful. I would also recommend fresh air, walking in nature, soaking in the sea, like trying to give ourselves these moments in nature that we're not, in order to find the nature of ourselves, in order to find those rhythms. But with the world speeding up so much, we do need to replace some of those nutrients into our bodies so that we can actually continue to communicate. I do believe there are forces that want to dumb us down, to dim those lights, to make us dependent upon the system, upon the matrix, so to speak. And that there is, the portal of us being able to come back into something more of a natural rhythm where we, like, just imagine getting together and doing seed swaps, and somebody grows zucchinis but someone else is growing pumpkins, and someone else has got chickens for swapping with eggs, like, to bring back that connection through as many things as possible is really important, because our four walls are separating us. There's more breakdowns in marriages than anything. There's breakdowns in community. People live in enormous houses and there are people living alone on the streets with no one. It's an insane time. So we've got to kind of, like, on a global level, I can see that reflected in myself, that each time I bring back an aspect of myself that's been left out somewhere because my belief was that that part of me shouldn't have been allowed, like I remember seeing one lady at school, at boarding school, I was laughing my head off and I could see across the dining room hall, she said, "I hate it when Debbie Yates laughs." And I was like, that's stuck in my mind to this day, where I would always then try not to laugh and of course, if you've ever tried that, it's not cool. It just means that you laugh even worse when you're trying not to. But it took like 20 years for me to unlock that little vision that someone else didn't like that laughter, because I didn't have also the tools then to go, I'm just reflecting back how miserable she was, how she couldn't let herself laugh, how, but we take on what we see and we sort of make that more real than the freedom that can exist. So I'm all for sort of helping to unlock any of those particular beliefs so that we can actually come back into some beautiful natural rhythm of, holy moly, how fantastic is this earth? How fantastic is this planet when we stand there and there's the sea, the trees, the breeze, the great creations that live in the oceans, and all of the animals in the air and the land, like it's absolutely spectacular how all of these things integrate and interact, and every single part of that big biodiversity is necessary to keep the balance in life. And the more that we've got people greedily taking and polluting the planet and thinking it's everyone else's problem, the more we're drowning under not only the physical pollution, but the sorrow of what's going on. So, like, the sooner people can wake up in as many ways as possible, the better. And being able to nourish and nurture that part in my field that chooses to not be polluting wherever possible, or to not be, even with my toxins, or even if I'm emotionally hurt by someone, I make that choice to actually kind of go, okay, well, I'll process this first. And then I'm not just knee jerk.
Not reacting, you're responding.
Yeah. But I have reacted in the past. I'm sure I'll do it again.
Oh, absolutely. It's
human here. Yeah, that's right. Not in a completely enlightened state, but I like to know that I can drop into it fairly quickly. Like I noticed in myself, I suffered a lot during times of depression or anxiety. And, I kind of know for me, 3 days in fetal position on the bed is the max. 2 days is much better. Then I can actually come back out and start to work with that. So I'm not saying initially you've got to completely change your rhythms, but it's really about learning your boundaries and your feedback system, how we're acknowledging or absorbing what we're taking in or what we're letting go, and working out what works for you, and then finding the voice to be authentic in saying, hang on a minute, I've got a day of, I can't do anything. Some people have never heard of that philosophy.
Boundaries, I call that. Like we're
Yeah,
very happy to set boundaries and protect other people, but sometimes we forget to do that for self.
yeah,
And so by doing that, like I would always, something that I did intuitively without realizing, back in my early 20s, was I'd having a bad day or I wasn't feeling very good within myself, but I'd share that and be like,
yeah,
I'm really, really sorry. Look, this is where I'm at. We'll have a great day, but to be able to share,
be honest, yeah,
yeah,
be
and be honest
integrity, yeah,
is really, really, it's really cool to be able to do that, because then that also means that there's that level of self-awareness. Okay,
yeah,
look, I might not be at my best today, but I'm here and I'm willing to do whatever is important. But also, obviously, there's additional work and allowing that time as well. So if I hit a moment of depression, I used to have years where it's like constant depression and
yeah,
anxiety. Whereas now I have my moments and I'll go, okay, cool, that was a bit full on, but it's heavily reduced down. So now
yeah,
it might only be half a day, it might only be a couple of hours. Some days it might be a couple of days or a week or two. It
exactly,
doesn't matter. It depends on what it is, how impactful it is in my world,
yeah,
but it's okay to
yeah.
experience those things as well.
Can you imagine how wonderful it would be if everybody only worked 3.5 days of the week instead of one person doing 7 days a week of, ridiculous hours, yeah, for good income, but then they've got no life, versus people who are not working at all, who are quite functional, who would like to. Imagine if everyone just divided their roles into half so that we work for 3.5 days, for someone, and 3.5 days or 4 days. Is that right? Yeah, seven.
Yeah.
3.5 days on community or on yourself, and actually bringing ourselves back into a balance there. So I think, Aura-Soma bottles are called equilibrium, so that they give us the idea of what all of the extremes are, and that we can find the middle way and find an easier way of balancing the self when we recognize what is. And I think it's interesting when people, like my daughter became a vegan. She decided one day, she'd been on having ibuprofen and Panadol maybe 8 times a day when she was about 12 or 13, constant headaches and things. And when I look back at her now, she gave up meat and dairy overnight and never touched a Panadol or an ibuprofen again. The headaches all stopped. But wow, what a steep learning curve for me. I had to go from, providing chicken and 3 veg to suddenly like, where does a vegan get protein? Not realizing it was in so many plants, Um, but sometimes we don't even know we feel like crap based on some of the external toxins that we're taking in as well. Not necessarily our own, but working with unhooking our own first before we can actually move into a proactive way of being able to live with freedom in the heart.
Absolutely. Oh God, this is
Mm.
amazing.
We could go on forever.
I think we could. So what I wanted to really cover off on was absolutely who you are as a person, obviously about your business, how people present to you, which you've also covered off on, and how you actually run your sessions. So I think we've kind of covered off on everything quite fluidly, actually, which is quite beautiful. So,
Yeah.
is there anything else that you would like to share for people to get to know who you are as a person and how they
Just,
can work with you?
yeah, just that I'm sort of a mother, a daughter, an auntie, a sister. I'm going to claim all of those pronouns. I was a breastfeeding mother. So like I've got a very broad range of understanding. I've been alone in life for a few years. I've been sort of together with people for many years, but I think it's I guess what's strongly in me is that I was born with the light, as we all were, and I will die with the light, as we all will. So the more I can help people anchor in and weave into these moments of having light-filled moments within their life, the more they're going to actually be able to align their consciousness with something that does continue on beyond our physical existence. And I think that's kind of like where we're moving towards. And I think anyone should potentially try and have an experience of light or color or sound. So sometimes I'm offering little groups of people to have group healings and group readings. Sometimes I might offer a sound bath, but to just basically reach out and connect and have a conversation, and then we can see, if it's something, for instance, like psychedelics, I can't help you with that, but I do know people that do facilitate those kinds of journeys. So reach out if you want to have a chat because you're curious or intrigued or wondering why you're drawn to a certain scent, or how come a color keeps popping up into your mind, or even, let me say, there's a deep resonance of a drop that's landed deep in the center of your being that's rippling out in a beautiful, slow, luscious ripple, and you just think, I need to know more about that. Then that's where I'd sort of be reaching out to connect. And if they're not sure, like I said, I've got a couple of app programs that you can self-work through, and you don't have to feel any pressure then. It's just like you can take that. You will buy the little Commander presentation set. So I think it's going to be like $3.97, gives them that full range of colors and their own little journey to go on. So that it's a bit of a low impact entry into something that could completely change someone's world. Life will never be the same again. If they want to come and do a course, then that's obviously the quickest, easiest way of giving yourself 4 days to sit and retreat and really absorb what that's like as things hit your field. You're in a very gentle and safe space in order to discover that. So, a little bit for everybody.
Love it. I think that's amazing. Well, Debbie, thank you so much for jumping with us today at Healthii Conversations. I'm so, so, so glad to have you within my space and within the space of Healthii Hub as well. It's truly surreal, beautiful, enlightening, all the things. It's really
I'm super excited to see the ripple that you're going to be making out there in the community by bringing everyone together into this incredible space where it narrows down what people are looking for in such a way. So thank you for having me, and thank you for doing what you do.